People always assume that when a marriage ends, it happens in an explosion, shouting accusations, door slamming. But that's not always the case. Sometimes the end is quiet. Sometimes the most powerful moments happen in silence. I didn't leave in a rush. There was no dramatic confrontation, no bags thrown out onto the front lawn. I didn't storm out in anger. I disappeared. And the most painful part, she didn't even notice. For 10 days. I should have seen it coming. In hindsight, all the signs were there, laid out in front of me like a puzzle I refused to solve. I just kept looking away, pretending I didn't see the missing pieces. It started small. She was smiling at her phone. More. Not the kind of mindless, scrolling smile people have when they see a funny meme. No, this was different. It was softer, warmer, a private kind of happiness. A happiness I wasn't part of.
Then there were the disappearing acts. Just grabbing drinks with the girls,
Late meeting at work. Don't wait up. My mom needs help with something. I'll be back. The first few times I believed her. The next few I wanted to believe her. And then eventually I stopped believing altogether. Then came the excuses. Excuses for why she was always tired. Excuses for why she didn't want to be touched. Excuses for why she felt so far away. I told myself it was stress, work life. I told myself she just needed space. I wanted that to be true, but the truth has a way of slipping through the cracks no matter how hard you try to ignore it. The moment everything fell apart was painfully unremarkable. It was a Thursday, just another normal day. I came home from work early, hoping to surprise her with dinner. I had the whole plan in my head. Pick up her favorite takeout, maybe a bottle of wine. Remind her of what we used to be. But when I pulled into the driveway, there was another car parked outside. I didn't recognize it. A single thought passed through my mind, quick as a lightning strike. It's happening. The air in the house felt different when I walked in. Not wrong, not bad, just I'm familiar. And then from the bedroom I heard it. A laugh. Her laugh. Not the polite chuckle she gave to coworkers, not the fake laugh she used at parties. This was real, unfiltered. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard in years, the kind of laugh that wasn't meant for me. I could have burst in right then. I could have shouted, fought, demanded answers. But I didn't. I froze. I stood there in the middle of my own house and felt the weight of everything. All the moments I had ignored all the nights. She had chosen someone else. All the love I had poured into her, only to be left with nothing. And then, in that second, I made my decision. I wasn't going to fight for her. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't even going to let her know I had been there. I was just going to leave. Packing my life into a few suitcases didn't take as long as I thought it would. It turns out when you've been emotionally checked out of your own marriage for long enough, walking away is easier than expected. I left no note, no confrontation, no parting words. I just walked out, and she never even noticed. Days passed, then a week, then 10 whole days before she finally called me. "Where are you?" she asked. And I laughed for the first time in a long time. I actually laughed. "Check the closet," I said. Then I hung up. When I hung up the phone, I expected her to call back. Maybe she'd demand answers. Maybe she'd apologize. Maybe she'd scream at me for leaving like a ghost in the night. But the phone stayed silent. I stared at the screen waiting. 1 minute. 5. 10. Nothing. I should have known better. She wasn't the type to panic right away. Not until reality hit her square in the face. And it would, because no matter how deep she was, in whatever fantasy she'd been living, at some point she'd have to look around and notice the empty spaces. The truth is I hadn't planned my departure for months. I hadn't plotted revenge or left clues for her to find. But once I made the decision to leave, I knew I wasn't coming back. There was a freedom in that, realizing I owed her nothing. No confrontation, no final words. She had already said everything she needed to say without saying a damn thing. I imagined her walking through the house after our call, her eyes scanning the usual places, expecting to see my things right where she left them. My shoes by the door, my jacket on the chair, my keys in the bowl by the counter. But they weren't there. And then she checked the closet. I wonder how long she stood there, staring at the empty space where my clothes used to be. Did she gasp? Did she clutch her chest like in the movies? Oh, overwhelmed with regret. Or did she just blink slowly, realizing that she'd gone 10 whole days without even noticing I was gone? While she was standing there in shock, I was miles away, sitting in a tiny motel room with nothing but a duffel bag. In my thoughts. I could have gone to a friend's place, but I didn't want to explain myself. I didn't want the pity or the questions, so I chose solitude. The motel room smelled like stale coffee and cheap carpet cleaner. The TV was an old boxy thing with terrible reception, and the bed creaked every time I moved. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was suffocating. The silence wasn't heavy here. It wasn't the cold, crushing silence of a marriage that had been dead. Long before I left, the silence felt clean. I thought I'd feel anger or heartbreak, maybe even jealousy. But what I felt most was relief. For so long I had been drowning in the slow realization that I had become invisible to the person I once loved. She hadn't cheated on me overnight. She had been drifting, piece by piece, day by day, until there was nothing left for me to hold on to. I just didn't realize that I had been disappearing. 2. That's the part that stung the most. She didn't even notice when I stopped trying, when I stopped asking about her day, when I stopped reaching for her in bed. She didn't care enough to fight, and neither did I. So why the hell did it take her 10 days to finally see it? I stared at the motel ceiling, replaying our phone call in my head. Her voice had been flat. No panic, no relief, just confusion, like she had misplaced a pair of sunglasses and finally realized they weren't on the table where she left them. Was I just that to her, a habit, an object she only noticed when she needed it? I closed my eyes and let out a breath. No, I wasn't going to let her infect my mind anymore. I had walked away, and for once in my life I wasn't looking back. But of course, life doesn't work that way. The next day she called again. This time she didn't sound confused. She sounded angry. "Are you seriously not coming back?" She spat the words like she couldn't believe she even had to ask. I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "Why does it matter? You didn't even notice I was gone." She scoffed, but there was something else in her voice now, something uncertain. "You're being dramatic, Harlan. You just left without saying anything. Who does that?" I let out a small laugh. Who ignores their husband for 10 days and doesn't even notice he's gone? Silence for the first time. She had no response. She expected me to be the one who begged, who pleaded, who tried to make sense of this mess. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. "Enjoy your life," I said, about to hang up. "Wait." Her voice cracked just slightly, just enough to let me know that for the first time she was feeling something. Regret, panic, guilt. I didn't know. I didn't care. All I knew was that I had already walked away, and I had no intention of turning back. I sat in the dim motel room, staring at my phone long after she hung up. The screen was dark, but her voice still echoed in my mind. "Are you seriously not coming back?" As if my leaving was some kind of overreaction, as if I had packed my life into a single bag and disappeared just for fun. The arrogance, the sheer audacity. She wasn't upset that I was gone. She was upset that she had to deal with the consequences of her actions. For years, I had convinced myself that things weren't as bad as they seemed, that her distance was just stress, that the way she pulled away when I tried to hold her wasn't intentional. I told myself that people changed that. Maybe I just needed to try harder, that if I was better, she'd come back to me. I didn't realize that I had been lying to myself. And the worst part, she let me. She let me believe that we were just in a rough patch, that things would get better, that the long nights away, the guarded phone, the half-hearted excuses, none of it meant anything, that I was paranoid for thinking otherwise. But the truth was simple. She had checked out of our marriage a long time ago. She had just been waiting for me to catch up. The days blurred together after that. I had no real plan, no destination. I just knew I couldn't go back to that house. To her, I drove for hours, sometimes through the night, stopping at roadside, diners, and gas stations, watching his life continued around me. Couples holding hands, families laughing over greasy food, strangers existing in their own little worlds, and me. I was just there, floating, ruthless. I had spent so much of my life being someone's husband that I forgot who I was. Without that title, without the responsibilities, the routines, the quiet sacrifices that no one ever acknowledges. I thought about the first time I met her, the way she used to look at me like I was the only person in the room. I thought about our wedding day, the vows we made, the promises we swore we'd keep. And then I thought about the moment I found out it was all a lie. The text message, the one I never should have seen last night, was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. Let's meet again soon, Redheart. It had taken me 10 seconds to read those words. 10 seconds to watch my entire life collapse around me. 10 seconds to realize that the person I loved, the person I had built a life with, had betrayed me in the most casual, careless way possible. I never told her I saw it. I never confronted her. I never even checked to see if there were more messages. I didn't need to. I already knew that was wise. The moment I started disappearing. Not when I packed my bags, not when I drove away, not even when she finally noticed I was gone. It happened the second I realized she wasn't mine anymore. I had been on the road for a week when she texted me. "Where are you, Not? I'm sorry. Not, I miss you, Not. Please come home." Just 3 empty words that meant nothing. I didn't answer. The next day, another message. "I think we need to talk." Talk about what? About how she let another man touch her. About how she laughed with him the way she used to laugh with me. About how she didn't even notice I had walked away until it finally inconvenienced her. I left her on red. Then the calls started. First once a day, then 3, then 5. I ignored them all. It wasn't until she sent a photo that I hesitated. It was a picture of our house. My car still parked in the driveway, the front door slightly open, like she had just stepped outside, and the caption underneath, "You still have a life here." I stared at the screen for a long time, my stomach twisting because she was right. I did still have a life there. But the question was, did I even want it anymore? I stared at the photo on my phone for what felt like an eternity. The house, the driveway, the familiar front porch where we used to sit on summer nights drinking cheap wine and pretending we had forever. She had sent it like it was some kind of anchor, a reminder that I was still tethered to that place to her. But what she didn't realize, what she never realized, was that home isn't just 4 walls and a front door. Home is where you feel safe. And I hadn't felt safe in that house for a long time. I put my phone down and exhaled slowly. You still have a life here. The words felt hollow, like an invitation to a funeral for a marriage that had already died. For a brief moment, I considered replying not to go back, but just to say something. To tell her that the life she was talking about wasn't real anymore, that she had burned it down long before I walked out the door. But what was the point? She wasn't asking me to come back because she missed me. She wasn't asking because she regretted what she did. She was asking because she was alone, and that was something she never planned for. I turned off my phone and leaned back against the motel headboard. The room was suffocating, the air stale with the scent of cheap carpet cleaner and cigarette smoke from whoever had stayed here before me. The dim lamp on the nightstand flickered every few seconds, just enough to be annoying. The walls were thin, and from the room next door I could hear the faint sound of the television playing some late-night talk show. I had been here too long. This wasn't living. This was just waiting. Waiting for what, though? Closure? An apology? Some grand realization that would make everything make sense? None of that was coming. I grabbed my keys, shoved my few belongings back into my bag and walked out without looking back. I drove aimlessly for hours, letting the glow of gas stations and fast food signs guide me. The radio was nothing but static, so I turned it off. I just needed to go somewhere, anywhere, that didn't remind me of her. Eventually, I ended up in a town I didn't recognize, parked outside of a diner that looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 80s. The kind of place where the coffee is always burnt and the waitress calls you Han, whether you like it or not. I slid into a booth in the back, ordered a black coffee and stared out the window at the neon open sign flickering against the glass. The world outside was quiet, still half asleep, while inside the clatter of dishes and the low hum of conversation filled the air. And then, without meaning to, I started thinking about the beginning, how we met, how she used to light up when she saw me, how she once held my face in her hands and whispered, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." When did that stop being true? Was there a single moment where she chose to betray me? Or was it a slow erosion, the kind you don't even notice until the foundation finally crumbles? I wanted to believe she had loved me once, that at some point I had been enough. But if that were true, how did we end up here? A waitress slid the coffee in front of me, her smile polite but tired. "Rough night?" she asked. I let out a dry chuckle, something like that. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. Maybe she had seen men like me before, men with tired eyes and a past they didn't know how to carry. As I wrapped my hands around the warm ceramic cup, my phone buzzed again. I didn't have to look to know who it was. She wasn't done. Yet she would keep calling, keep texting, keep trying to reel me back into a conversation that she didn't deserve to have. Because the thing about people like her, the ones who take without thinking, is that they never expect to lose. I picked up my phone and for the first time since I left, I typed out a response. "I have a life, just not with you." And then, before I could second-guess myself, I hit send the moment. I hit send, a strange feeling settled over me. It wasn't relief, not exactly. It was something quieter, something heavier, like finally exhaling after holding my breath for too long. For days I had been running not just from her, but from the weight of everything I had ignored for years. The lies I told myself. The way. I had convinced myself that love could survive on habit alone. But love isn't about routines. It isn't about coexisting in the same space, hoping the silence won't swallow you whole. Love is something you fight for. And she had stopped fighting a long time ago. I sat in that diner long after my coffee went cold, watching the world move around me. A truck driver in the corner scrolling through his phone between bites of a soggy sandwich. A couple near the window, their hands tangled together like they were afraid to let go. The waitress leaning against the counter, rubbing her temples between orders. Life went on, even in the wake of destruction. Life went on. And that's when it hit me. I had been clinging to something that didn't exist anymore. My marriage wasn't the thing I needed to mourn. It was the illusion of it, the version of us I had been holding on to. Long after she had let go, I thought leaving would feel like an ending, like closing a book on a story that no longer made sense. But the truth was, it felt more like a beginning. I didn't check my phone for hours. I didn't want to see her name lighting up my screen, didn't want to see whatever response she had sent, if she had even sent one at all. Maybe she was still staring at the message, trying to process the fact that I had made a decision without her, that I had walked away and meant it. But eventually my curiosity got the better of me. I pulled my phone from my pocket and glanced at the screen. 3 missed calls, 1 voicemail, and a single text. I don't understand that, was it? No apology, no anger, just confusion. I should have expected it. People like her, people who take and take until there's nothing left, never see the damage until it's too late. She wasn't devastated because she lost me. She was devastated because I was no longer an option. I almost laughed. For years I had tried to understand her, tried to navigate the shifting sands of our relationship, bending myself into shapes I didn't recognize just to make her happy. And now she was the one who didn't understand. I deleted the voicemail without listening to it. Whatever she had to say, it didn't matter anymore. The next morning I checked out of the motel and started driving again. No destination, no plan. Just miles of open road and the hum of an engine beneath me somewhere along the way. I pulled into a rest stop and sat in my car, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My face looked different, lighter, like I had shed something I had been carrying for far too long. I thought about the version of myself that had stood in that house 10 days ago, staring at an empty closet, realizing for the first time just how alone I had been. I wasn't that man anymore. I wasn't a husband. I wasn't someone's backup plan. I was just me. And for the first time in years, that was enough. The thing about leaving is that it doesn't happen all at once. It isn't just walking out the door and never looking back. That's the fantasy version, the clean break, but reality is messier. Even when you're gone, pieces of the past still find ways to follow you. For the first time in weeks, I stopped moving. I found a small town hours away, the kind of place where nobody asks questions, the kind of place where a man can disappear if he wants to. The motel was barely a step up from the last one, but at least it didn't smell like cigarette smoke and regret. I had a new burner phone by then, my old one. It was off, tucked into the bottom of my duffel bag, silent. I wasn't ready to get rid of it completely, not yet. But I wasn't ready to turn it back on, either. I spent my days doing nothing, wandering, sitting in coffee shops, watching strangers pass by and wondering what their lives looked like behind closed doors. Did they kiss their spouses goodbye in the mornings? Did they come home to warmth? Or were they, like me, just drifting, untethered? It was peaceful, or at least it should have been. But peace doesn't last when you leave. Loose ends started small. A private number calling the motel room. No message, no voicemail. Just silence. Then an envelope, no return address, slipped under my door in the middle of the night inside a single Polaroid photo. My house lights on, my car gone. The front door, slightly ajar. I stared at it for a long time, something cold settling in my stomach. Whoever sent it wanted me to know they had been there, that they had looked for me. I should have felt anger, fear maybe, but all I felt was exhaustion. I didn't need to check my old phone to know who it was by the time I finally turned my old phone back on. There were 67 missed calls. Not just from her, from mutual friends, from her family, even from numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't check the voicemails. I didn't need to. I could already imagine them. "Harlan, where are you, dude? Just talk to her. She's freaking out, man. At least give her some kind of answer." And then, at the bottom of the list, one last call from a number I hadn't seen in years. Her mother. That was when I knew something had changed. Her mother never called me, ever. She tolerated me at best. So whatever had driven her to reach out, now it wasn't just about a missing husband. Something else was going on. I sat with that knowledge for hours, staring at the phone like it held the answer to a question I didn't want to ask. I had left. I had made my choice. I didn't know her anything, but still I pressed play on the voicemail. Her mother's voice came through, tight and controlled, but there was something underneath it, something close to panic. "Harlan, I know you don't want to hear from me, but you need to call her now. Whatever happened between you two, this is bigger than that. She's not okay. Please." Then silence. No details, no explanation, just a demand wrapped in urgency. I should have ignored it. I almost did, but I called anyway, and the second she answered, I knew I had walked into something I wasn't ready for. The phone barely rang once before she picked up. Harlan. Her voice wasn't what I expected. No anger, no bitterness, just something else. Something raw. I didn't answer right away. I just held the phone to my ear, staring at the dark motel ceiling. I shouldn't have called. I should have ignored it. Let her sit with the choices she made. But something about her mother's voice, the way she had said she's not okay, it clawed at me. So I finally spoke. "I got your mom's message." A beat of silence, then a shaky exhale. "I didn't think you'd call." Neither did I. I expected her to launch into some speech to beg or scream or demand explanations, but she didn't. Instead, she hesitated like she didn't know where to start, and for the first time I wondered if she had felt it too. The unraveling, the slow, quiet death of everything we built. Maybe she had been pretending just as much as I had. "I'm sorry." She finally said 2 words, 2 empty, meaningless words. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. For what? Another pause for everything. I sat up, rubbed a hand over my face. I could feel it coming, the part where she told me what she had done, how she regretted it, how she wished things were different. But that wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want her guilt. I wanted something real, and maybe that's why I asked the question. I never thought I would. "Did you ever love me?" A sharp inhale, and then the longest silence of my life. The weight of that pause crushed me. It was the kind of silence that told me everything, even if she didn't want to say it out loud. She started, then stopped, tried again. I thought I did. I closed my eyes, thought past tense, conditional. I guess not a certainty. That was the worst part. Not that she had cheated, not that she had broken us, but that she had never really been sure of me in the first place. That was what all those nights apart had meant. That was what the distance, the half-hearted kisses, the unread messages had been. She had been waiting for something better, and eventually she found it, or at least she thought she had. I should have ended the call. I should have just hung up right there and let her live in the mess she created. But then she whispered something I wasn't expecting. "Aaron, I need to tell you something." My grip tightened on the phone. What? Another hesitation. I could hear her breathing shallow and uneven. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked. I made a mistake. I almost laughed again. No, kidding. But something about the way she said it. It didn't sound like regret. It sounded like fear. Do you think you can just say that? And no, she cut me off. You don't understand. It's not just about us. It's about... She stopped. A muffled noise in the background, maybe a door shutting, maybe someone else in the room. My stomach twisted about what I pushed, and then she whispered, the last thing I ever expected to hear. They lied to me. They not. I lied to you. Not. I was wrong. They. I gripped the phone tighter, my pulse picking up. Who? More silence, then a breath, and then, I can't say it over the phone. I pushed off the bed, pacing the small motel room. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. She was supposed to beg, cry, try to win me back, not whatever this was. You don't get to be cryptic now, I snapped. I walked away. That should have been the end of it, but you... I stopped myself, exhaling hard. You called me, so talk. Another noise in the background, maybe footsteps. I need to see you, she said. Please. I let out a dry laugh. Not happening, Harin. No. I ran a hand through my hair, gripping the back of my neck. I couldn't do this. I couldn't get pulled back into her games. She had 10 days to notice. I was gone 10 days and she hadn't even cared. Now suddenly there was urgency, but then she said something that sent ice through my veins. It's not about us anymore. Something about the way she said it, the sheer terror in her voice made my blood run cold. I swallowed, hard. Then what is it about? She hesitated, and then almost too quietly she said, it's about why you really left. I stopped breathing because I had made that choice. I had packed my bags. I had walked out, hadn't I? But suddenly I wasn't so sure anymore. I stood frozen in the middle of the motel room, her words still ringing in my ears. It's about why you really left. I had left because I found out she cheated, because I saw the text, because I packed my things and disappeared before she even realized I was gone. That was the truth, the whole truth. Wasn't it something about her voice? The fear, the hesitation was digging into my brain like a splinter. I couldn't pull out. What the hell does that mean? I finally asked. She exhaled sharply. I need to see you, Harlan. I swear to you, this isn't about trying to fix things. It's... She stopped, lowering her voice. I just need to tell you something in person. No, Harlan, please. No, I repeated, my voice firmer. This time you don't get to drag me into whatever mess you're in now. You lied to me. You cheated on me. You lost the right to ask me for anything. I know her voice cracked, and I deserve that. But if you ever loved me at all, even a little, just meet me once. Just for 5 minutes. I clenched my jaw. She was playing on my emotions, twisting the past into something she could use against me. But the problem was, it was working. I hated that. Some part of me still wanted answers, not about the affair. I had accepted that for what it was, but about everything else. What had changed? Why was she scared? And most importantly, why was I still listening? I should have hung up. I should have ignored her, but instead, I heard myself say where, an hour later, I pulled into a nearly empty parking lot outside of an old diner on the outskirts of town. She was already there, sitting in her car, headlights off, hands gripping the steering light so tightly. Her knuckles were white. She looked up as I parked, her eyes locking onto mine through the windshield. She looked different, not just tired, not just guilty. She looked haunted. I stepped out, walking toward her car. Slowly, my heartbeat pounded in my ears. The air between us felt heavier than it should have, like the weight of everything left unsaid was pressing down on both of us. She rolled down the window. "Get in." I shook my head. "Say whatever you need to say." She hesitated, glancing around like someone might be listening. Then, after what felt like an eternity, she took a shaky breath. "Heron, the text you saw, the one that made you leave." I stiffened. "What about it?" She swallowed. "It wasn't meant for me." I blinked. "What? I mean, I didn't write it and I didn't receive it. It was planted." I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "You expect me to believe that?" She looked up at me, eyes brimming with something I couldn't place. "It wasn't real, Harlan. It was meant to make you leave." My stomach twisted. Who would? But the moment the words left my mouth, a horrifying thought clicked into place. They lied to me. I had assumed she meant the other man, the one I had been so sure existed. But what if? What if there was no other man? I took a step back. The whole world tilted on its axis. She opened her mouth to answer, and then her phone buzzed. I looked down at the screen. The contact name was blocked. Just a simple, unknown number. But the message, asterisk, asterisk, that message, asterisk, asterisk, made my blood run cold. "You shouldn't have told him." Her breath hitched. She looked up at me, terrified, and in that moment I realized something I had spent all this time thinking. I was running from her. But maybe, just maybe, we were both running from something else.